Yeah, I saw a reference to that in the thing.
Microphone is on. Madam High Commissioner, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I declare open the 10th meeting of the 39th session of the Human Rights Council. Before we proceed, I would like to remind delegations that the list of speakers for the adoptions of the UPR outcomes will close today at 6 p.m. No inscriptions will be possible after this deadline. In its resolution 37/26, considering that the 17th anniversary of the Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide provides an important opportunity for member states and the international community to reaffirm the significance of the Convention, the Council requested the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to organize at this session a high-level panel discussion to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Convention. I would like to welcome Mrs. Mishel Bachelet, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, and His Excellency Mr. Zohrab Mnatsakanyan, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Armenia, who will deliver opening statements. I would also like to welcome our distinguished panelists, Mr. Adamā Dienger, Under-Secretary General and Special Advisor of the Secretary General on the Prevention of Genocide, Mrs. Kimberlī Proste, Judge of the International Criminal Court, Mr. Viliam Šabas, Professor of International Law at Middlesex University and Professor of International Criminal Law and Human Rights at Leiden University, and Mr. Fabian Sալvιόνι, Special Rapporteur on the Promotion of Truth, Justice, Reparation, and Guarantees of Non-Recurrence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, let me remind you that members of the Council wishing to participate in the discussion are invited to register by pressing the red button with the sticker. Delegations wishing to register dignitaries or to register on behalf of regional and other groups are asked to do so directly at the list of speakers counter. Their names will be moved then to the beginning of the list. And now I'd like to ask the Secretariat to activate the electronic system for inscription on the list of speakers. Please activate. Okay. The list of speakers is shown on the screen, and it will be closed in 15 minutes. Speakers are encouraged to intervene in an interactive way in the debate through comments and questions. And now it is my honor to invite Mrs. Mishel Bachelet, High Commissioner for Human Rights, to present her opening statements. Madam High Commissioner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President of the Human Rights Council, Mr. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Excellencies, colleagues, and friends. A warm welcome to all as we mark the 70th anniversary of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. And of course, a special welcome to our panelists who bring an enormous breadth of knowledge and expertise. Thank you for your participation in this important discussion. Important because we know that the odious scourge of genocide, as the Convention itself describes it, remains both a threat and a reality in the 21st century. Just over 2 weeks ago, we were brutally reminded of this. The Council's fact-finding mission in Myanmar issued its shocking report on the military-led campaign of murder, rape, and assault against the Rohingya people of Rakhine. A conservative estimate of 10,000 dead, countless more bereaved, maimed, raped, and traumatized, and nearly 750,000 people forced to flee to Bangladesh. This leaves us in no doubt that the Genocide Convention matters as much today as it did on 9th of December 1948, the day it became the very first human rights treaty to be adopted by the General Assembly, followed the next day by the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These twin events mark the start of a new era of human rights, a vision of a world where the genocide of the Holocaust and the stripping of multiple human rights that it represented would never happen again. 70 years on, we must take stock on the gravity of recent acts perpetrated against the Rohingyas and Yazidis, and we must do everything possible to hold those responsible to account. Accountability matters, not only because it provides justice for victims and punishment for perpetrators. It matters because ending impunity is central to ending genocide. Prevention and punishment, the explicitly stated twin aims of the Genocide Convention, can never be seen in isolation from each other. Punishment is key to prevention. Impunity is an enabler of genocide. Accountability is its nemesis. So what does accountability look like in practice? International human rights laws give us some of the answers: effective, prompt, thorough, and impartial investigations, prosecutions, access to justice, and effective remedies for victims. The UN approach embraces everything from fact-finding exercises to judicial processes. 6 months ago, another crucial part of the accountability armory, transitional justice, was the focus of a major study presented to the Human Rights Council. This important study was jointly written by the Secretary General's Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Ադամա Դիենգը, whom we are delighted to welcome as one of our panelists today, and the former Special Rapporteur on the promotion of truth, justice, reparation, and guarantees of non-recurrence, Pablo de Grave. The report's central message is clear. Transitional justice processes help to prevent violation of human rights and international humanitarian law, and in particular genocide, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing. They deliver truth, justice, and reparations, and are therefore a vital tool in breaking the cycles of impunity, discrimination, and marginalization and the risk of recurrence. This report highlights the importance and potential preventive impact of the work of the Human Rights Council and the Human Rights Office. The International Criminal Court also forms a central pillar of the work to punish and therefore help prevent these gravest of international crimes. We now have the means to bridge, if not eradicate, the impunity gap for international crimes, including genocide. States have the primary responsibility for prosecuting perpetrators, but the court's use is wholly appropriate in cases where the state is unwilling or unable to deliver justice. I welcome last week's decision by the pre-trial chamber of the International Criminal Court, which found that the court has jurisdiction over the alleged deportation from Myanmar of Rohingyas and possibly other crimes. Although the decision does not specifically address the crime of genocide, it offers real hope for accountability for the crimes committed. Support for the court is indispensable for both justice and deterrence. I urge all states to support the court, and in this, the year we commemorate the 20th anniversary of its founding with the Rome Statute, I call upon all remaining countries to sign or ratify the statute. Excellencies, genocide is always shocking, but is never committed without clear, multiple warning signs, a pattern of abuse against a group, an intent to harm, a chain of command, and finally a brutal and horrifying outcome. In the case of the Rohingya, warning signs abounded. A people oppressed from birth to death, an army answerable to no one, and systematic state-led human rights violations that went unpunished for decades, including arbitrary deprivation of nationality. One of our remaining challenges, 7 years after the Convention's adoption, is therefore to improve how we recognize and act on these warning signs, including hate speech, both in the real world and on the social media. As the Secretary General has emphasized, the best prevention tool is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the international treaties deriving from it, since they identify many of the root causes of conflict and also provide real-world solutions. As we celebrate the 70th anniversary of both the Genocide Convention and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it remains essential that we stand up for this great vision of more humane and peaceful world. I look forward to your discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Madam High Commissioner. And now I invite His Excellency Mr. Zöhdrab Mnatsakanyan, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, to present his opening remarks. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Madam High Commissioner, Mr. Special Advisor, distinguished panelists, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed truly thrilling to be back in Geneva in the Human Rights Council after exactly 10 years since I relinquished my post as the then Armenian ambassador to the UN offices in Geneva. It is also 10 years since the first Armenia-sponsored Human Rights Council Resolution 725 of 28 March 2008 on the prevention of genocide was adopted by consensus. Since then, we have been regularly and consistently developing the normative framework for prevention. It is particularly symbolic for me to share a panel with all the distinguished panelists with a profound record and commitment to advancing the prevention agenda internationally, and in the UN in particular. This event is taking place as a result of the unanimous decision of this Council, as reflected in the respective paragraph of Resolution 3726. For 20 years, since 1998, Armenia has been consistently working within the UN and with its many partners towards raising awareness of the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, of the continued risks and challenges related to atrocity crimes, and towards building legal and institutional capacity to prevent. Therefore, it is an opportunity in my new capacity and from this podium to reconfirm Armenia's firm commitment and resolve towards a continued effort to advancing the human rights agenda, preventing atrocity crimes, including genocides. In this panel, I am very honored to be in the company of persons with extraordinary prominence and expertise in the field of prevention. I want to congratulate High Commissioner Mishel Bachelet on her appointment and assure her of Armenia's unwavering support. I am particularly pleased to share this panel with Special Advisor Ադամա Դիենգը, who have been quite consistent in New York in working towards this agenda, including since 2015, when the UN General Assembly, by its Resolution 69323, unanimously proclaimed 9th December as the International Day for the commemoration and dignity of the crime of genocide and for the prevention of this crime. Together, we have been persistent in using the International Day as an important platform for advancing the prevention agenda within the UN. Today, together with all the distinguished panelists, we do this in Geneva. Before I go any further, and having in mind the upcoming 70th anniversary of the Convention this coming 9th December, I want to acknowledge and pay tribute to Raphael Lemkin, a profound lawyer who had dedicated his entire life to challenging and confronting the right to kill behind the thick curtain of sovereignty, elaborating the legal term of genocide and endorsing international responsibility upon sovereign states to protect their populations from the crime of genocide. Of course, I want also to pay tribute to every single national and international activist, advocate, expert and practitioner of the difficult challenge to stand up and prevent atrocities, massive crimes and genocides. I want to recall in particular Benjamin Whitaker, who back in 1985, in a landmark document known as the Whitaker Report, for the first time initiated the idea of establishing an impartial international body concerned with the prevention of genocide. Unfortunately, it took a long time and more genocides to occur before the international community took heed of what the late Secretary General Kofi Annan termed complicity with evil and endorsed back in 2004 his proposal for tangible yet still modest mechanisms for the prevention of genocide. I want to thank Special Advisor Dieng and all his predecessors for the consistent action towards changing the culture of this organization from that of reaction to one of prevention. I want to thank Secretary General Antonio Guterres for his commitment to sustain the joint office of the Special Advisors for the prevention of genocide and for the responsibility to protect, and for consistently promoting the critical functions of early warning and early action in the prevention of genocide. This is the 21st century. We mark the 70 years since we have adopted the Convention and committed to never again allow this crime to happen. We have uttered never again so many times since, yet genocides have not been fenced off. Tendencies of radicalism, exclusion and hatred are rattling the international agenda. Particularly troubling is the conspicuous decline in the international commitment to multilateralism and respect for human rights at a time when we need more international cooperation and stronger institutions for this, especially the United Nations. Genocides may not be occurring too often, but seldom as they may be, they are the ultimate crime. Lemkin's argument to the skeptics of the need to legislate such crimes has been about the permanent loss of a group targeted with genocides, while the survivors of genocide will be forever deprived of an invaluable part of their identity. We know this from experience. 4 months before 9th December, I remind about the upsetting statistics about the status of ratifications and accessions to the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Nearly a quarter of the UN membership delays accession to this core international instrument. On the eve of the 70th anniversary of the Convention, and as a country to have been consistently advancing the prevention of genocide, including within the United Nations, Armenia joins its voice to the appeal of the Special Advisor concerning the universalization of the Convention. Armenia has been consistently promoting the recognition of the importance and priority of early prevention, which entails sufficient capacity to detect, monitor and address early warning signs of situations which, if not addressed, may lead to deteriorations beyond control and all the way to the perpetration of massive crimes. Early prevention means early action. Prevention, first of all, implies legal and institutional capacity, firmly based on political and moral responsibility to protect and promote basic human rights and freedoms for all within the jurisdiction of states. Flawed capacities to secure human rights for all create particular risks for identity-based violations of rights, the ultimate manifestation of which, as we know all too well, is genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Consistent and determined protection of fundamental human rights defines a notion of responsibility to prevent. Indeed, prevention should be viewed as a responsibility to be delivered, first of all, at a national level. Solid national institutions, an active, diverse and robust civil society, free media and academia contribute towards ensuring transparency and accountability. Prevention at the international level requires continued integrated approach and action across the board, intertwined with the three pillars of security, development and human rights. The human rights and preventive machinery within the United Nations system has over years generated considerable capacity to detect risk situations, to gather and analyze early warning signs, and to deliver it to the membership. The role and functions of the available human rights mechanisms, the Office of the High Commissioner, the special procedures, treaty bodies, and the UPR process deserve sustained focus and utilization, as they are indeed well placed to secure collaborative action aimed at early prevention. I draw attention in particular to the practical proposals of the Special Advisor concerning systematic and structured approach within the UN to information gathering, analysis and dissemination of early warning signs, as well as support to regional arrangements and member states in developing effective early warning systems. The international community and the UN system should be resolute in reacting to all patterns of discrimination and targeting all vulnerable groups, to hate speech, radicalism and incitement to hatred. Denialism and impunity are fundamental obstacles to prevention. Justice denied haunts generations of genocide survivors and obstructs genuine reconciliation. Finally, Mr. President, the role of education for the promotion of a culture of respect for human rights are indispensable functions of prevention. By having established a global forum against the crime of genocide back in 2015, Armenia offers a solid platform for international cooperation for the prevention of genocide. The third global forum to take place in Yerevan on 9 December 2018 will gather a prominent list of scholars and practitioners of genocide prevention and will particularly focus on the role of education. Armenia is duty-bound and resolute to contribute to the collective international effort in prescribing remedies to prevent future genocides. I conclude with the reiteration of a deep conviction that never again should be uttered once and for all. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Let me inform the delegations that the list of speakers is now closed. I'll now pass the floor to the panelists for their